Hi y'all, I'm Hannah.
Hi, I'm Kayla.
Hi, I'm Holly.
Hi, I'm Ann.
Hi, I'm Marie, and we are coming to you live from the beautiful state of Texas because it's Happy Woolly Wednesday! Hey everyone, wherever you are, it is Woolly Wednesday, even if it's Thursday, like if you're in the atmosphere. And we are so glad you're here because on Wednesdays we like to hang out, take a little time off. Sort of. And today we're going to felt, but you girls have been running all around today because you're quite fuzzy, I see.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Kind of fuzzy. Somebody tell us something fun that you've been doing.
I'm actually, even though it's May, I've been working on needle felting fairy tale pumpkin kits. So go figure.
Fun
That's
stuff.
fun.
It's such a blur. It's been so crazy today. Making super basic needle felting kits.
Oh,
that's what I've been doing today.
That's good. Holly,
I don't know what I've been doing.
Holly, you've been learning the ways of the how to separate the
hankies, they're very fun.
but they're very pretty.
Yeah. Today, helping get a lot of orders out.
It is a beautiful day here. We hope it is wherever you are. And today we're going to do a nono felting tutorial. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to just jump right in and get started. Thank you, gals.
Thank you.
Those are the LF fairies. That's what we call them because they're always sprinkling magic everywhere they go and in whatever they do. And thank you for being here. We are Living Felt. We are based in Texas, but we have friends all over the world. So I hope you see some of them checking in now and saying hi and where they're from. So if you're watching the live show, be sure to do that. If you're watching the replay, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, look up in that chat window and hit the little bell. You'll get notified anytime we go live. We do this almost every week. We do take a few weeks off here and there depending on our busy schedule. Like last week we had the lovely Charity Vandermeer here from the Netherlands teaching a nanofelt coat class, and if you haven't seen, we posted a whole bunch of pictures right here on our Facebook page of some of the beautiful coats the women made. And I want to tell you just what a treat it is to have our friends come from different parts of the country, sometimes different parts of the world, and take a workshop because we get to meet them in person and just get to put a personality and a warmth to that face and that address that we're used to seeing. So it was really a fun week and amazing things were made. And today we're going to take some baby steps and do just a simple sample of nanofelt, and I'm going to work with a few different silks. So some of you might be felting along with me. I did not post a supplies list because it would be a great time to just kind of watch and absorb, but if you're already a felter, you might just want to felt with us anyway. So I'm going to say hi to a few people if I can find us on here. Usually have to scroll a little bit. And who do we got?
We have got Rose in Connecticut, Susan in California, Kate in Washington, Rose in Massachusetts.
Hi Rose, hi Kate, hi Susan, hi folks, thank you so much for joining in. So say hi and where you're from, and if you're brand new, say you're new. If you've never wet felted or you've never nano felted, say that too. So we had a little introduction, sort of chit chat, show and tell 2 weeks ago now that is on our YouTube channel, and it's here in our videos archive on our Facebook page. So you can see that, where we looked at lots of different samples of nono felting, whether you say Nuno or nono or Nuno, like the Japanese say it. This is an example, this dress right here. There's lots of different fabrics you can use. Nono felting, nono or nuno in Japanese means cloth, and nono felting is binding the fibers with cloth. So we're going to do that today. This little tunic is an example of a few different types of fabric bound with merino top. And Anne says she was having a conversation with someone on the phone just earlier today who's never wet felted and said the only fabric she really has is a cheesecloth. What was her name, Anne?
Her name is Edwina Wood, and she's watching right now.
Hi, Edwina. So I want to tell you that cheesecloth is a great thing to start with. I even almost brought a sample. I have a sample, just a textural piece that I made many years ago where cheesecloth is just the middle. So when you nanofelt or when you bind with fiber with fabric, you can do it as an entire layer, or you can do it as inlays like you can see on the front of this garment. So this piece right here is kind of like a cheesecloth. This was given to me by my friend Erin Butler, and it was dipped in an indigo vat that she participated in. This is a very old tunic of mine, which was a tunic from India. It's printed and it's 100% silk. And this is another piece of fabric that was actually a thrift store silk that I had that was dipped in my own indigo vat. And this yarn down the middle was also dipped in my indigo vat. So there's lots of different fabrics you can use, and there's lots of different methods. Like this dress has a silk fabric as the base on the inside, wool, and then silk fabric inclusions, all of these little spots you can see. And I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see my skirt, huh? My skirt doesn't show. So I'm wearing a skirt today made by Charity Vandermeer, who is the teacher who is just here, and she gave it to me, and it's a silk sandwich, which is kind of what we're going to do today. I should run on a step stool so you can see.
I'll go get a step
Anne's going to get a step stool. So that's what we're going to do today, is just a little bit of a silk sandwich, and I want to encourage you to experiment with some of the fabrics that you might have around, and to learn to practice your layout, just to lay out real thin and to slow down your felt making just a little bit. So I'm going to say hi to a couple of people. Anne's going to get me a step stool, and then I'll show you this skirt that Charity gave me. I love it so much. I really do. Okay, so Jessica Hill says she's never wet felted or nono felted, but she's working up to it. She's excited to watch live today instead of the playback. Yay, Jennifer, thanks for being here. And then Sis Hewitt says she's never nono felted. Jennifer is in California. She's never nono felted also. Okay, good, y'all. Well, this is going to be just toe in the water. Now, we're not even making anything today. I'm making a sample. If you watch back the last show, you'll see that we shared a lot of samples. Some things finished and some things not. And the goal is for you today to be willing to make a sample. And look, if you want to save that into your own little library, great. If you want to cut it up and sew it into something else later, great. That might be what I do, depending on how far we go. So I'm going to model for you now. Charity gave me this as a gift. And so, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my skirt, and I'm fuzzy. I won't try and lift my skirt too high, but you have two different scarves here. I know one of them's from Turkey. I don't know about the other one, but this one has a lot of blue and red, and this one has a lot of brown and black. And on the inside is actually, let me see if I can show that. On the inside is sort of a burgundy. Can you see my waistline? No? You mean to come down one?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay,
That's good.
this is my own shirt tag. On the inside is a burgundy, either like a habit or another grade of silk. It's dyed in multiple colors. And then on the outside are silk scarves, and in between is wool. So this is what I saw some people mentioning on the board that we had talked before about a silk sandwich, and this is what I call a silk sandwich. So I thought we'll use that today for our samples, so that way you could play with a few different samples of fabric and see how they behave with the same fiber. How's that sound? Good? Okay, good. So I'm going to pull my stuff together. We are going to turn down the camera so you can see. But basically we're going to be working with standard bubble wrap, which we do sell. It's the little tiny bubble wrap. Yes, you can buy it locally. If you shop with us, you can buy it with us too. We sell it in big long rolls. 24 inches wide is how we carry it, right, Ann? We're going to be working with bubble wrap and some thin plastic. Otherwise, just a few tools, and I'm going to show this to you. So we're going to turn down, refresh your drink if you want, grab a snack, and let's get started. Okay, so let me talk you through my table here. Are we good? Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, let me talk you through my table here. The first thing is we're going to be working with fine merino tops. These are 19 micron, lovely against the skin. The goal for today is to encourage you to make samples. One of our most common questions is, will this felt, or will these two things felt together, or these three things felt together, or how will this shrink, or how much will this shrink, or what will happen? And the truth is, the only way you know is to make your own samples. So do what you want with your samples, whether you keep them, file them, or use them, repurpose them. But the best thing to do is to make your own samples to see how things will perform. We're working with fine merino tops. I am working with a collection of silks. So this is a thrift store shirt, 100% silk. It says on the tag. You want to look for that. And you can see that there's some burnout to this and some not burnout. This is our Margolon rarefied silk. I showed samples of that last time if you want to see that in some different colors. This is actually a chiffon, which is a little heavier than a gauze. It's probably a 5 momme. And this is a thrift store find that I bought only to Nuno felt. It's not in my secret closet. No one's ever seen me wear anything like this. So I'm going to cut this today so we can see how it felts, and I'm going to cut out one of the flowers with the beadwork so you can see how that felts. Go ahead.
Leah shares, I'm surprised I didn't know this could be done with pattern silk.
Yeah, we're going to do it with pattern silk today. And I don't know if we'll get to it. This is the fiber. I brought a few things that are just either felted or partially felted. This is something that was partially felted. This is 100% wool felt that's been printed. This is a felted piece, and this is some big bulky yarn. If we get to it, we'll maybe include just a couple of inclusions so you can see how the fiber reacts with that. Underneath, you'll see. I have some room temperature water. It's not hot. I'll explain that. Thin, paper thin, like 0.7 mil plastic, the kind of stuff you get at the hardware store. These are my wet out tools, a ball brass and a sponge. We sell this. You can get this in your local grocery store. A pool noodle cut. I have lots of different sizes of pool noodles. We're going to use that to roll. These are my ties. You can use old t-shirts, whatever. We have a lot of these around. They're just polar fleece. I like them for tying my roll so it all stays together. And just towels. So we have towels. I have grippy, a mat, and the bubble wrap. And scissors. Good? Okay. So what we're going to do is start by laying out and to make our silk sandwich, and ask me any questions because I always have more to say than I end up saying. I always forget to say half of what I want to say. We're going to create a sandwich, and I'm going to use this fabric right here as my base layer. When you use fabric as a base layer in your felting, it acts at least as 2 complete layers of fiber. So you could add 1 layer of fiber on top of this fabric, just 1, and it will felt because the fiber is going to migrate through the fabric. Fiber migrates 2 directions, so right, it will go this way, it will go down, but it will also go up. So that's why you can put more on top, and the fibers go multiple directions. So expect the fiber to change how the fabric looks, and part of the reason for making a sample is to experiment with that and see how do you like those combinations together, whether it's texture or color or whatever.
And a couple of our felting friends want to know, should we use the bubble wrap bubbles up or bubbles down?
I have the bubbles up. Now, when we did the nanofelt class, I didn't take it this time, but when we did the nanofelt class with Charity, we used the bubble wrap as a resist. And so the bubbles are up, but when you think about it, when you roll and stuff, it's all going to be flat and you're going to flip it over anyway. So for me, it doesn't really matter, and I like to lay with the bubbles up because it feels a little more grippy. When you open your merino top, one of the things to learn how to do is to lay your fiber thinly and evenly. If you try and pull from a great big thickness like this, just how it comes, it's a lot more difficult to control. So especially as you're beginning, be willing to separate the fibers. And I always separate the fibers. So this is the normal thickness of the top. This is a combed top. I'm going to separate it down the middle. I'm not weighing anything today. We're just going to make samples and see how that goes. And I've got strings from my silk everywhere. Okay, and I'm actually going to separate it at least once more and get it nice and thin. And if you want to create texture in your bottom layer, you can wet it. You could wet it and crunch it and sprinkle it or do some interesting things. We're going to just leave this, let's see. Well, we're going to leave this layer completely flat, just level and flat and dry while we do our layout for this example, okay? And when you go to pull off your merino top, if it's all wispy and uneven at the end at first, go ahead and just tear that off so that you get a nice, pretty much straight edge. And you're going to want to learn to control your fiber when you're working with these fine tops, meaning you don't want any splits or gaps in the end. You want to keep it as straight and together as possible so that you can lay it out in really thin little layers, just like that. Now remember, this is just a sample. We're not making anything specific. If you were making something specific, you might change the layout to support that item. But you want to do your best to keep this nice and flat and control it. I kind of use my fingers like that. Some people use their fingers like this. Some people use their hands like this. And when I do that, it lays it out too thick. So play with it and be willing just to get your sea legs about you, or your felt legs about you, if you will. And I'm going to, yes, Anne.
And a couple of our felting friends want to know, are you ever worried about silk bleeding onto the fiber or vice versa?
It's a great question. So they're asking, the question is, are you worried about the dye, the silk dye bleeding onto the fibers? And the thing to do is to test your fabric. This weekend, somebody had a lot of blue fibers and blue silk, and one of those bled quite a bit. Actually, the same thing happened in the last workshop on the same table, the same place in the room. Yep, the same person had blue, and what happened was there was a whole bunch of blue dye runoff. One of those people, the blue stuck to the other fibers and ended up actually sort of coloring their whole garment. So you do want to test for your color fastness, and it might be a good point to go ahead and make a sample. Just make a sample and see. Now, notice that what I'm doing, and I've just been laying out and not telling you what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is I'm pulling off little thin pieces and I'm overlapping about a third. You can see how wispy and traily it gets off down here and how the top is a little more blunt and uniform. And I take the more straight edge and put that about a third of the way up the previous layer that I did.
And is it always better to use silk as your first layer?
It really depends on what you're making, because you don't even have to use silk as a layer in itself. You could have, I mean, if you're nono felting, you could have silk as the top layer. Some people would lay out wool and then lay silk on the top, or some people do a silk sandwich like we're going to do today. So it's really good to think about what it is you're wanting to achieve. One thing is, a layer of silk gives you a solid starting point. And when you're making a wearable, that means you can cover, like a wearable over a resist, you can cover the entire resist with that fabric and know that you have a solid coverage, you know, and it allows you to lay out your fiber really thinly. Now right now I'm just laying one layer, and I've been just going I would say is the traditional perpendicular layout. Just for fun, I'm going to show you something else here on just this last little bit maybe. So in the traditional perpendicular layout, you would lay out things in two directions. In truth, with the nono felting, we don't even have to lay out two directions. We can lay out one direction only. We can lay out one direction only. So just for fun, why don't we break up this piece? And right here, I'm going to lay a second layer, just up to a third of it. I think we'll do a directional sample another time, but I just want to demonstrate. This layer that I'm laying down now is actually even thinner than my first layer.
Rose asks, could you use silk as a bottom layer and put pre-felt on top?
You can felt to pre-felt, and the one thing I want to mention about that is pre-felt and the merino top are going to behave differently. And pre-felt is generally, not always, some pre-felts, I'll just say, some pre-felts are made from a cut fiber and others are made from a long fiber. So it would be good to experiment with what you have or what you have access to for the purpose you want to use it for. Because I think the pre-felts that are a cut fiber would tend to pill a little bit more with something getting heavy use, whether that's a purse or a wearable. So just think about that purpose. And you know what? A wearable's going to pill. I'm just going to say that right out loud. A wearable's going to pill. Especially if it's a lightweight wearable, as opposed to, you know, maybe something super thick and made with a really coarse fiber. So this part has 2 layers, 1 layer going this direction, 1 layer going this direction. In the middle, I'm going to leave it just like that, because we can, just so you can see how it performs. And I'm going to have to jump on it and get to felting pretty quick, but I'm going to show you another way people do a single layer layout. I'm just going to kind of get it going, is to do this sort of cross hatch. It's kind of like I need to practice this, so don't look to me honestly as the great expert to the cross hatch. I'll be honest with you. Yes, there's plenty of things that Marie needs to practice. So if any felting teachers are cringing right now.
Jessica
we all begin somewhere. Yeah.
Jessica asks, is this size of project that you're doing today ideal for a wet felting sample size, or is it bigger today just for the Woolly Wednesday?
Yeah, I just made it a little bit bigger so that we could lay out, I mean, mostly so that you could kind of see what I'm doing, because it's easy for me. I often would do something that is an 8-inch or a 10-inch square. That tends to be about my sample size, an 8-inch or a 10-inch square. So play with that for yourself. Any sample size is going to tell you something. You might just want to see, how does this fabric perform in general? Will the fiber even bind to it? And thin layout is something that I really need to practice. Like, everything I made in the beginning was not a wearable, and learning to make a thin layout is really ideal, especially for thin wearables. This part's a little bit thicker than this other part. And then I'm just going to trim the end here, right there along the end. I'm just going to trim that out. Now, if you're measuring for shrinkage, this is not the way to do it, right? I mean, if you're measuring for shrinkage, you want all of your layers to match as opposed to be squirrely like this. So when you're measuring for shrinkage, like you're making a test to test for making a garment, follow the same layout like you would on that garment. And for today, I just want to show you that there's more than one method to layout, and you can't even use 1 layer of fiber when you're nanofelting. So I've kind of cut these pieces up here. This is the Margolon silk. It is almost like if there were a cheesecloth in silk, this is it. And I'm going to use that right on the middle here. And I'll show you kind of how I like to do panels. See how it's all stringy? You can cover those up if you want, but let's see how the other silks fit that I cut. This one I will cut, and I'm just going to do a little patch. And on the other one, the flower one, we'll make sure we get a beaded flower.
Alrighty, and Megan wants to know, does the crosshatch pattern you just laid out give a stronger end product?
You know, what it's going to do is contribute to how something shrinks. So you're going to get a little less shrinkage in an area where in one direction when you do a crosshatch pattern. And it allows you, when you do a crosshatch pattern, it allows you to do a single layer versus the 2 layers that we did over here. Does that make sense? It's kind of the same contribution, but you can do 1 layer in the crosshatch pattern. My big brown skirt, I did the crosshatch pattern, but I swear it just took me forever just to get the rhythm of I was worried the whole time, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Okay, so I'm going to cut out one of these. I'm going to cut out one of these blue flowers. And you could do maybe we should include a little bit of lace if we can, just so you can see how that behaves. Now I don't want to do, let's see. What I want to show is just how it's going to look.
Barbara says it seems like the hatching would be harder to keep an even coverage.
Well, it's one of those things, you know, you just kind of got to learn how to do it, and it's a training thing, you know. It's just learning how, and you know, if you're stretching and learning, then awesome, you know. Maybe you're stretching and learning. Okay, here's all my pieces. Now, you don't have to trim the edges of your pieces. But what you'll often see when I felt something like I don't want these squigglies here is I often hide the shape, or I might cut something into a rectangle and then I might trim it out so that it doesn't even look like a rectangle, or you can't see what I put down there. So that's an option for you. And why don't I do it just on at least in between these two joins, so you can kind of see what I mean. I like to hide whatever I put down so that you're not focusing on the perimeter, you're only focusing on the design that it brings to the piece. And you can just bury it under a little bit of fiber. And remember, the goal of this piece is just to see how do these fibers behave and how do you like these colors together, maybe in your initial one. See, all this squiggly stuff drives me nuts, so I tend to cover it up. But maybe you like it. Like on my tunic, I left it on the bottom because I don't know, somehow that was a little more interesting to leave it on one side, but not on all sides. Anne's nodding. That's all I need is for Anne to nod. If Anne nods at me, then I'll just keep going. Thanks, Anne.
No problem.
Okay, I'm just going to go to right there. So already this is a little more interesting because I've covered up all that weirdness. And what you can see is it's good to test the fabric that you have and see, do the ends bind well, or do they tend to, see how I just want to cover them all up, or do they tend to stay a little loose? So I'll stop there since it's just a sample. I just want to cover it all. I want to.
A couple of our felting friends want to know, could you, after making a sample with something, could you incorporate it into a larger project? You wouldn't. You could if you pre-felt it, then you could, if you just lightly felt it, then you could cut it or inlay it into another project, but you could also felt it all the way and then like cut it and sew it. Or this could be a placemat, or this could become a journal cover, or, you know, so it could become a few things. So yes, you can, but you need to felt it enough or lightly enough to join in that, whatever it is you want. Okay, I think we're gonna just skip the inclusions today, and we'll look at techniques and stuff next time. So what we wanna do, once you have all the designs, just how you want them, is we wanna wet our project out. Usually you see me working with mesh, and today I'm going to work with this thin plastic. I love learning from other people and seeing how they felt and then trying how they felt also. And a lot of people felt with bubble wrap and plastic. I just have my soap in here, by the way. It's just been getting my water nice and soapy, so this water is very soapy. And Charity likes to felt this way with thin plastic, and she makes a lot of wearables. I tend to like to put mesh, which I wonder if I'll be able to resist. I like to put mesh so that I can press all the water in and feel it with my hands, and I like to massage with my hands a bit too, which I generally do show you on this show. Let's see if I have some. Okay. And one of our felting friends wants to know if you're making a sandwich with silk wool silk. Could you ever make a sandwich with wool silk wool?
Yes, and I mentioned it probably too quickly when we were talking about the cheesecloth just a minute ago. That's one of the samples I thought I probably wished I had brought. It's wool cheesecloth wool. So yes, you can use it as a whole layer. So this is our mesh. It's just a great product for if you want to be able to put your hands on your project and press all the water in. You often see me do this and even rub a little bit with my hands. So one of the things we do when we're felting is we have to agitate That's what the bubble wrap is for. Some people use tools. I decided not to use any tools today other than bubble wrap, hands, and my pool noodle. Another time we can look at some other tools. I know people are interested in sanders, in the palm washboard, which we carry and is a great tool. But one of the best things for you to do is to learn to felt by feel. Learn with your hands. When we nano felt, we want to slow down the process a little bit to give the fiber time to bind with the fabric. The finer your fiber is, the faster it's going to felt. If your water is too hot and your motion's too aggressive, you'll felt the fiber to itself and it won't want to migrate through the fabric. So that's really a key point, is to slow it down enough and give it time to felt to the fabric. So here's one way people nano felt, with bubble wrap or bubble wrap as the resist, and they put plastic over the top. The plastic can seem a little strange at first. The key is to get it soapy. Let me get this out of here. To get it wet and soapy so that your hands can glide across. Your hands can glide across the top. If your hands can't glide across the top, then it's just impossible to do. So this is one of the most gentle forms of agitation, is especially if you're new or you're shy or you feel like you tend to be heavy-handed, is you can rub through the plastic and against the bubble wrap so that you can feel the fibers starting to compress, and you can feel them with your hands that you're massaging. You're not massaging enough that you would disturb the design underneath, but the plastic really helps hold it in place. So to felt in this manner, you need the water and the soap to permeate the fibers. The fibers need to be fully wet. They need to be fully soapy before you start any agitation, which is what we're doing now. And using the plastic with the water is the most gentle. So if you're uncertain, you feel shy, just do this. Just do this. Now, once you get it all wet, what you can do is roll. I'm going to demonstrate that, and then I'm going to demonstrate how we do that, and we're going to rock and roll a little bit, and I'll answer some questions. Let me move this stuff aside. So we're going to take our pool noodle, and I'm going to roll all of this up. You could even roll up your grippy mat. That can be nice, or you can just roll the plastic. Whenever you roll, some of your water is going to squish out, so think of that wherever you are. You could roll up the grippy mat, but I like to roll against the grippy mat because it keeps me from sliding all over the place. So I have my project rolled up, and now I'm going to use this little towel here. It's a cut towel from somebody else who came for a workshop, and I'm going to roll my project up in this. Rolling is a form of agitation. In felt making, we have the stage where first you make a soft felt and then you full, which is shrinking the felt or getting it to further bind together. Right now, we're just trying to get the fibers and the fabrics to entangle and start to become one. This is why I like these, because they're big and easy to tie. Okay. I'm going to start to roll now, and what you need to do is whatever agitation you do, you want it to be even. And so we're going to roll from one direction for a little while and another direction for a little while. If counting is not your thing, you can set a timer. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let me hear some questions.
For our felting friends that just joined the broadcast, what type of plastic were you using on top?
This is a very thin painter's plastic. I think it will read as like 0.7 mil in the paint department. So just go to the paint department of your hardware store.
One of our felting friends is asking if this part can be done with a sander.
Some people use a sander. Somebody wants to know, can you do this part with a sander? Some people use a sander usually in the very beginning, and then they usually use some other form of rolling or agitation after that. So I find that there is a lot of benefit in rolling and getting the fibers to really go into each other. And so I would say watch a few videos of people who like to use sanders. I know people who use the sander and then they use the dryer. But take caution before you throw something you just spent 4 hours in on the dryer. You really want to experiment with the dryer method because it's a thumping method and you're going to need to roll your piece up to some manner anyway to control its shape while it goes into the dryer.
And someone asked, how long do you need to roll for?
You need to roll until the fibers are starting to bind together, or fibers and fabric are starting to bind together. What depends on what you're making. So one of the benefits of starting to make samples is learning how the felt feels when it's ready for a new form of agitation that we call fulling. So if you've not felt it at all, I would encourage you to watch back some of our lessons, especially like the pancake lesson or something that we've done before, so that you can make little pieces of felt and learn what it feels like when the fibers start to become one. Because we do what's called a pinch test, usually like when you're doing 100% wool, and that is that you can pinch the fabric and tent it up and know that if you're getting to it like this, you're not pulling it apart. It stays together. And we do need to change our directions and roll from multiple directions. How are we doing on time? I'm gonna have to just pick up my game. Now, you don't have to just roll. You could rub with your hands. I love rolling with my hands. Rubbing with my hands. I always do a large degree of initial rubbing with my hands, but today I just want to show you something that's really safe, that you just, honestly, you just can't mess it up if you drop that plastic on there and you get to rolling pretty quick.
A couple of our quilting friends want to know, how tight do you need to make that roll?
Well, the question is, how tight do you need to make the roll? So notice that as I'm rolling, it stays round and it actually rolls. These ties are really going to help you. When you are first starting, start with these small samples. When you start with these small samples, what you see is that when you roll it up, it's all nice and snug, but we haven't bound it up so much that it is crinkling and binding. If you are working on a bigger project and you roll it up too tightly to start, it's going to kind of buckle under there. You don't want what's in here to buckle. So what happens is on a thin project, that's a little bit easier to start because not too much water pushes out. There's not too much air between the layers. So you do want it to be snug enough that it stays nice and round. See how I'm not wrenching it down, but I'm rolling it up. So there's no crinkles in it. It's nice and round and it's going to roll. That's what you want. You want your roll to stay round. Otherwise, the fibers are going to be shifting across each other. So I've rolled it up now from the opposite side and we're going to keep rolling. Once you have your layout, usually the layout is time to spend, your creative energy, and the felting part is where you get to just kind of, I don't know, think thoughts. And I'm listening. Questions?
I think we've had a lot of questions touching on this subject, but I think what they all relate back to is are there any rules for laying out the silk in meadow felting? A lot of folks are surprised that we're able to use silk on both the bottom and the top and the silk distorting. So when you're laying out the silk initially, are there any rules or any things that you should watch out for? Like, for instance, can you use multiple pieces of silk?
Yes. Okay, so are there any rules? I used to say no silk on silk. And last year I took the class with Charity Vandermeer and she just blew that out of the water for me. And so we would have overlapping silk layers. If your fibers are long enough, they can migrate up through the multiple layers of silk, but you should test that design. And can you use multiple things of silk? Yes. And I would encourage you, we have to watch one of our videos. It's for nono felting a neck warmer, where I do this whole mosaic. if you like that at all, we have a download. I think it's around $5, where I show you how to blow that up into a shawl version. And I show you, it's a PDF, that download, but I show you how I combine lots of different fabrics. Most of them are silk though, and lots of different fibers, locks, yarns, etc., and to create these really highly textural things. And we even showed some of those on our chit chat 2 weeks ago, right, Anne? We showed some of those. So I don't know if that's what you mean, but I do like to mix it up. I really like texture and variety. Did I answer the question, do you think?
I think so,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is really boring, so ask your questions. Anne's trying to read them all and feed them to me. And we are on a little bit of a delay. If we don't get to your question, it's not because we didn't care, but we see what you write about 25 seconds after you write it. And sometimes what we try and do is go back and ask questions, answer questions after the broadcast, but usually later in the evening once I've had my dinner. And I'm in my jammies. Nice visual, right?
So Linda asks an interesting question about wearables. If you nono felt a wearable, does it tend to stretch out over time?
Oh, that's it. That's a good question. So it depends on it's going to depend on how you put it on and how you wear it. Like the skirt that I'm wearing is a pull-on. And I can see that if I'm having a heavier day or heavier week, the fiber would tend to give a little bit. But you could shrink it back down with a rinse and, you know, a little bit of rolling if you wanted to. So I think it really is going to depend on how you treat it, you know, while you're wearing it and working with it. Let's look at our felt a little bit now. We've only been rolling, and I'm going to peel back the plastic, pardon the green, just so you can kind of see. This looks like it's almost disappearing, the Margolon, but I promise it's going to be so shiny when it's dry. You can see that this fabric is kind of laying down a little bit, and I'm even able to handle it a little bit, even though we've only rolled a small amount. It's not done by any means. We could just pick it apart if we wanted to, but I think even it shows that there's some compression already happening with what we laid down, which was loose bits of fabric and loose bits of fiber just a few moments ago. This silk had some burnout to it and some not here. So let's keep rolling and let's ask some more questions. And remember, today's just toe in the water, toe in the water. Just try nono felting. See if you even like it or what ideas come to you for things you might like to make.
Leah asks, is a towel the only fabric you recommend for making rolls?
Oh, no. I like a sheet sometimes, but one thing I like about a towel is it adds a little bit of thickness and a little bit of barrier between your stuff, and it absorbs water. But sometimes when I'm rolling, I've used a sheet. If you watch some of our old videos, depending on what I'm making, I've used like quilting squares. So play with it and see what you like. Sometimes a sheet's more gentle on your hands, especially if you're rolling something big with your arms. A sheet is more gentle than some scruffy old towel. So no, I just like fabric on the outside, other than plastic. Plastic slides all around. It's really annoying.
And just a little bit ago, you mentioned burnout. A couple of our felting friends want to know what's burnout.
Oh, I don't even know how the process is done, honestly, but sometimes you see a silk or a velvet where like you see the velvet and then there's other parts of the fabric that are almost naked or bare. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a design, but it's almost bare, and I think this looks like, I don't know if it's really a burnout, but you can see that that one piece of silk that I had has some areas that are more solid and some that are more sheer. Okay, does that show? See how some are more solid and some, and squinting at me. See how some of that's more solid and some of that's more sheer? The shiny part is like a thicker fabric, and this is almost like the difference between a habitai and a gauze in one piece of fabric. That's what it seems like. Yeah. Yes. And now listen, you might think of what you might like to make. You could use silk inclusions or even the silk sandwich to make a vessel, a bowl, a purse, a hat, a skirt, a journal cover, a table runner, greeting cards, I don't know what. My My friend Erin and I made those bracelets a while back. We made wrist cuffs, and we used a thin layer of silk on the bottom and pre-felts in the middle and all kinds of stuff on top. Maybe I can get her in this summer. We'll do it again. But just think about what you might make with your own handmade fabric. This is like upcycling to a whole new level. When you find something at the thrift store, look for that silk label to make you feel a little more confident, or play with something like the open weave cheesecloths. I like this table height for rolling. It's like counter height. Yeah, it's higher than we normally raise our tables, but I like it. Good arm exercises. So the gals this weekend that were making these coats, one of them had their sort of exercise monitor on. And so it was counting like she was doing bunches of miles, even though she wasn't. Okay, I'm going to hurry. What are we doing on time, Ann?
We are at 2:48.
2:48. Okay, I'm going to flip this over and do some more rolls from this direction. Normally what you do is you do it from all 4 directions on both sides, but let me hurry squeeze in another set of rolls here so we can see how far we get in the broadcast.
And a couple of our felting friends want to know, for making small samples, can you use a silk hanky as a base the same way you could silk fabric?
Well, a hanky isn't the same as a fabric. That's the only thing I want to say. You don't have to make a silk sandwich like I'm doing. You don't have to. You could just use silk inlays like like is on the front of my dress, or you could just use silk as one whole layer. Silk hankies are just non-woven, and I think generally when we're talking about nono felt, we're talking about a woven fabric, no matter how loosely woven. And a silk hanky would be a surface design, but not a layer of fabric. Definitionally speaking, in the form of a definition. You know what I mean?
Patricia asked, have you ever wet felted with rayon?
I have wet felted with the cheapest scarf you can find at the grocery store. And it might have been rayon. It certainly wasn't cotton. And so I have used it as an inclusion, but I'll say that other than the pattern, it was pretty uninteresting. It just sort of melted into the background. It didn't do any interesting puckering. It just kind of laid there. And it did add color and pattern, but it didn't add any interesting texture. And I've used it, that scarf, very little other than, I think you can see it. The one I'm talking about is white and purple, and I used it on the wet felting and neck warmer tutorial, which is on YouTube. That's free. So you can see a variety of different fabrics there. Now notice that when I'm rolling, just for those who are brand new, that this is a little roll, but that I kind of tend to move my hands from the middle, out, 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 to the middle, out, out, out. When I learned to felt, we didn't have a tube or a roller or any kind. The lady, it was all written instruction, but she said it had to fit within your hands. Whatever you were felting, even though it was like a big pair of boots, had to be able to practically wad it up in between your hands. So I always try and touch it all, and I'm also twisting the roll. I'm giving it like turns as I'm rolling so that multiple sides are down. Okay, I'm gonna unfurl it right here, and we're gonna look and see if we can felt some with our hands in our final minutes. And maybe we'll go over just a pinch. What do you got, Ann?
A couple of our felting friends want to know if we'll ever be selling a pattern for coats or dresses.
Oh, you know what? I have to tell you what we will offer is a video workshop. But when it comes to a dress or a pattern, the thing to learn to do is to make your own pattern that fits your body. Now, I know there's somebody out there who's selling some patterns, but there's just nothing like learning to make a pattern that fits your own body. And I will say, so we have a dress tutorial online now on our website by Diana Nagorna. It's a full video with English overdub. It's beautifully filmed. I think it's $120 and absolutely worth it. But don't jump there if you don't have any experience felting. You know, wait until, get some experience felting a little bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna see how this feels with my hands. And what we can do is turn it over, and I know it's hard to see, But we kind of have a little bit of a fabric going here. I don't want to rough up anything. I like to see how everybody is doing, all the fibers are doing. And I would roll this now like if it were me, I would either be rubbing it through the mesh, or you can roll it. You can still roll it in your towel or in your plastic, but you can roll it without the plastic. You want to start to see some migration coming through the silk, and where it's solid is the easiest place to see that. What do you got, Anne?
Let's see. Beth asks, is a bamboo mat too aggressive for this type of project?
Yeah, I wouldn't use a bamboo mat on the silk. Don't use the bamboo mat on your silk, because that can be too aggressive. That's what someone asked. Can you use the bamboo mat? A bamboo mat could really chew up your silk. Use a bamboo mat when you're trying to hard felt something else. Or even the wood, like the wood rolling tools that we have. If you're nano felting, wrap those with your bubble wrap or with our super bubble. And we did show our super bubble, I think last time, did we, Anne? We showed our super bubble on the last show. So, okay, I'm gonna look at this here. I know we're getting close to time. But today's goal is to show you, one, how easy it is just to get started with nano felting, and two, to get you experimenting with nano felting. So I'm gonna see.
And Kathy asks, do you have to worry that the I guess the layers will stick together as you roll it around? So for instance,
if you're concerned about that, then keep your plastic in place. It really depends on the condition of your felt at the moment. It really does. Now, I can see that this is starting to migrate. Can you see that this part is getting kind of brown?
I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
Okay, Anne's going to zoom in. If you can see that this is getting a little brown, what you can see is that the fibers are migrating up through the silk. And one of the things I like to do is rub from the silk side and kind of coax the fibers in this direction. If you're really trying to control shrinkage, keep rolling and don't go to hand rubbing too soon if you're really trying to control that shrinkage. The more flat and even you keep it and treat it, the more uniform it's going to stay. So no wadding and no throwing. You're going to recognize that we've said that a ton of times if you're really trying to control the shrinkage. Anyway, you don't wad or throw until you get a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do, this isn't even really puckering yet. We could heat up our water, and I know we're out of time. We could heat up our water and keep rolling. So what I'm going to do is keep rolling my piece and keep felting my piece. And then I'm going to share it with you before I cut it up or do anything else with it. How are we doing, Anne?
We're doing
We have a
good.
few minutes. I'm going to keep felting. Ask me another question before we jump off.
Wonderful. First of all, I do want to just say that Sherry says, I'm actually brave enough to try this now. Thanks for making it so easy.
Oh, fun!
And someone asked earlier in the broadcast, do you see less shrinkage with nano felting or more?
You can still get a 50% shrinkage with nano felting. So the thing to know is that, and I think we'll do a directional class, meaning we'll play with the different directions of fiber, but the amount of fiber you put and the direction of the fiber will help control the shrinkage. But you can achieve a good 50% shrinkage with nano felting. Even I did on my big skirt using lots of random silks. But the thing to know is that the more fiber you use, the less shrinkage you'll get. More fiber is harder to shrink.
And Chantel asks, how do you know when it is migrated through the silk enough?
Well, you're going to be able to see it. And the true answer is experience, but the beginning answer is to, if you're not sure, go ahead and rinse a piece. Usually the initial rinse will kind of start to show you. And if you're still not sure, then let it sit overnight. What you want is it to really feel like a nice compact fabric. all the layers should be migrating, you know, in both directions. So you can always rinse something and let it sit overnight, and if you decide that it's still too loose, it would come apart on you, then go ahead and felt it some more the next day. Usually what we do is we kind of heat this up. When you heat it up, then it's really going to start to full, but we're not going to have time for that now. We've still been felting, but let me show you this. I suppose we could come back and finish this next time. We could just leave it as it is, but most people will probably go beyond this. We have a nice fabric here. Look how that I can pick it up and I can handle it, and none of the fibers are coming apart. It is a soft felt. And now what I would be doing is you can felt it by hand, rolling it. You can roll it between your hands like this. I would definitely heat it up with warm water. And this is the fulling stage where you really start to shrink it. Now here, when you have this nice pattern like this, you can decide whether you want to really jig out that fabric or whether you want to control it. So if you want to control it, then just, you know, keep rolling it. It's still going to start to shrink down and scrunch down. But if once you get a good felt going, you can start to throw and wad if you want, depending on what you're making. Let me get my bubble wrap out of the way. So you can just roll on your mat.
Angelina shares, I've got 5 pages of notes, so excited to try later tonight.
Did I talk that much, Angelina? You're hired, girl. Now notice how this is starting to get real narrow. I think you can see that it's definitely shrinking down. Our silk is even, this silk wasn't the lace. The lace wasn't silk, it's just some polyester, whatever. And that binded right to that. What should we make this into? Originally I thought I would make like wrist warmers or something, but it doesn't seem like that. It's, what could it be besides a forever sample? And look at that beadwork, like how it's just kind of hanging out there and providing a real nice surface. And this is gonna look really different when dry. This is gonna be shiny, and everything is gonna have a different look to it when it's dry. So look, between now and next week, if you can, if you're interested, make your first nono felt sample doing nothing more than we did today. A little wetting, a little rolling. I used our olive oil soap, of course, because that's what I love. You can try dish soap. You'd want something not too sudsy. So find a soap that's not too sudsy and work with that. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna finish this and I'll show it to you, or I'll at least let it dry, and we'll decide what to do, and you can see what stage it's at after finishing with you now. And I hope that you'll post your initial tests in our group, which is just on Facebook here. It's called Living Felt Friends. Even before you make anything from it, don't worry about being perfect. If you have questions, post your piece and post the questions. The group is there for support, encouragement, and help. It's not about being the best or getting everything right or perfect. We are all about exploring, experimenting, and trying new things. And that's our goal with Woolly Wednesday often, and especially today, is to get you to experiment and try something new. So I look forward to sharing this with you when it's dry. It's gonna look interesting and unique, and it's a one-of-a-kind piece of fabric. So I'll rinse it out and show you what that looks like. And in the meantime, pick out your silks, go to the thrift store, get out your cheesecloth or whatever you want, and make your very first piece. But use fine fibers if you have them. You want to stick as best you can under 22, 23 microns or finer. So I'm going to roll this out of the way, and we're going to turn up and give away prizes.
Everybody's excited about trying it now.
That's cool. Guys, what we like to do is give away prizes at the end of every show. For those of you who are watching live, we always give away something for you to play with. And the fairies brought in treats. We'll get Ann in here. And someone's going to draw a name.
Ready? And the first winner is Melody Vaughn.
Yay!
Tell her what you want, Ann.
Well, thank you, Hannah. Oh, I'm almost dropping the basket here. Melody, you win a piece of the bubble wrap and 2 2-ounce rolls of merino top in your choice of colors.
Yay!
So you can just email customer service at livingfelt.com with your color choices. Next name?
You want to go next, Holly?
Sure. Okay, 1. Crystal Huts.
Yay! Crystal!
Crystal, you win a Nono Felting a Scarf Kit.
Woo! Good place to start, and we have lots of colors of those too. So just if you want, email customer service and tell us what colorway you would like. Just go on our website. Did you share a link to that earlier?
Did I?
Just search Nuno on our website. You'll find them.
Alrighty.
And then Kayla?
Okay. Sherry Miller.
Yay!
Sherry, you win 1 yard of the Margalon Rarefied Silk Fabric, a 2-ounce roll of merino top, and a 1-ounce roll of a merino silk blend
that's
in your
awesome.
choice of colors. Yep, so again, just email your color choices to customer service at livingfelt.com.
Did we give away all our prizes?
We did!
Y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to join our group, Living Felt Friends, or go over there, post your Nuno Felts. In the meantime, play, have fun. We'll see you next week, and next week we'll include some textures in our Nuno Felting. So next time, have all your supplies ready and play along with us. We'll see you then. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.